it's kind of like when someone becomes insulin resistant, or they call it insulin resistant or pre-diabetic, where their blood sugar is starting to creep up, right? They're not fully diabetic yet. And one of the things to note would be that your cells, you're producing plenty of insulin. Because when you're a diabetic, there's type 1, which is an autoimmune disease where you don't produce insulin. Those cells don't produce the insulin, so you have to take it. But when you're a type 2 diabetic, you produce so much insulin. The problem is the cells aren't listening. They're ignoring the insulin. So the insulin's knocking at the door saying, hey, excuse me, we need to get this glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cell. And the cell's like, oh my gosh, we are packed with glucose. We don't want it. So they ignore it. So the idea, just common sense would say, okay, we'll stop, eating, lower that insulin, lower that blood sugar, let the body start tapping into that fuel. So you can think of it like if you never use the food in your freezer and you keep going shopping and you're just using what's in the refrigerator and then occasionally trying to shove more stuff in the freezer and trying to sit on it, that's the effect of a type 2 diabetic taking more insulin just to really cram that glucose into the cell that doesn't want to take it. So does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So insulin, again, is a growth factor, and chronically high insulin, which if you're pre-diabetic and you have chronically high blood sugar, what that's doing, it's just a combination for disaster. Because what happens if you have chronic high blood sugar going through your blood vessels? This is why diabetics, the long-term side effects are, amputations from damaging the blood vessels, those small, tiny blood vessels that feed the extremities. They have, kidney failure from damaging the blood vessels that feed into the kidneys. They go blind from damaging the blood vessels that go to the eyes. And those are just horrific side effects. So, and the reason being is that the blood vessels are lined, the endothelial lining of the blood vessel is made out of proteins. And there's a reaction called either the Maillard reaction or it's called glycation. And that glycation damage between sugar, or I should say glucose and the proteins actually have this reaction. And it's a browning effect. It's the same thing when you put the glaze on a ham, it turns the skin of the ham brown. It's turning your insides brown, turning your collagen brown on the inside of you, and it's causing damage. So essentially, glycation damage produces what they call AGEs, advanced glycation end products. So in your blood vessels, when you have all this elevated blood sugar that's damaging the endothelial lining, what happens? You have all this damaged tissue, and then cholesterol comes in like the Band-Aid to fix it. And so cholesterol gets the bad rap, but it's kind of like blaming the firefighter for the fire. Your blood vessels are inflamed. They're damaged from the glycation, and the cholesterol, or the little firefighter, comes to put out the fire and repair everything, and he gets the blame. It's not the cholesterol. It's the elevated blood sugar. It's the chronic high insulin that your cells aren't listening to the signal, because you have to empty out. You've got to clean out those cells of their glucose in order to put glucose back in.
So break it down.
And that's why your body needs that break.